As the cliche goes, April showers bring May flowers. But usually what comes after is the heat and dryness of summer. Hello again, SA here. And before the hot weather of the holiday shows up, you should indulge in my new short story, The White Cat, a free exclusive on Substack. The links are down below in description. Join Margot Thompson, a beautiful stage actress and recent widow who finds salvation in the form of a white cat during a night of terror. While checking out my oddball thriller, remember that my Glitch series is still available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The links are down below in the description. While you'll find my peculiar story about a white pussy entertaining, that doesn't mean I'm out of ideas. I still have more stories coming down the pike, so as long as I don't run into any mishaps, you'll see those stories as well. Now let's get back to the video. Hello again, SA here. If you've ever read a history book, a good one, you may have came across a section that mentioned the early days of the United States, particularly in the newspaper industry. Indeed, there was a period in the first early decades of the country when it came to newspapers, they called it the party press period. Now, of course, you probably never heard that term if you haven't read a good history book. But it basically refers to a period when newspapers were beholden to political parties. Now, of course, some of you are probably saying, well, hey, that happens now. Oh, but this was different. Because back in those early days, political parties actually had what they call patronage. And you said, wait, what? Yeah, no joke. And indeed, they said that in many cases, what will happen is that depending on which political party sat in the White House, they would hand out basically the various perks to certain so-called news journalists, i.e. Patronage. And in many cases, they did out in the open. Yeah. No weird bagman showing up in the middle of the night at the editor-in-chief's office dropping off a bag of money. No. They did out in the open. And it lasted for a while. Indeed, according to the history books, these newspapers didn't even try to hide the fact that they were rooting for one side or the other. Indeed, back when Andrew Jackson was president, some partisan newspapers referred to him as a seducer because he happened to marry some woman when his marriage officially wasn't settled. And later on, when Grover Cleveland became president, the Los Angeles Times, which was a Republican rag back then, no joke, wouldn't even announce that the guy had became president. At least not for, I think, about a good week or so. But yeah. And then, of course, you had the Communist Party. You know, they had their own publications, like the Internationale. And, of course, Pravda, but that was, of course, overseas. Yeah. But, of course, supposedly that period slid by the wayside in favor of basically other forms of patronage. Indeed, if I remember correctly, by the middle 19th century, newspapers were selling were making more money selling their newspapers than from patronage, and therefore they were not necessarily totally beholden to whether it be the Whigs or the Federalists or the Democrats or the Republican parties. No, no, no. But of course, that doesn't mean that partisanship went away. No, 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 no. Now, indeed, you had it going on well into the 20th century. Indeed, there were the the Daily News. Yeah, that was Republican rag, and still is. Yeah. And of course, we can't forget those clowns over at what they call it, the Gray Lady. Yeah, the New York Times. I mean, man, those guys were so far left that they probably went totally around in a circle. Indeed, there's a famous or notorious story about how reporters for the New York Times wouldn't report on Stalin's excesses. True story. And of course, anyone who's seen what's been going on there nowadays says that not much has changed. And of course, some of you say, well, what about Fox News? Hey, we didn't forget about them. Yeah. Because I remember reading that article by Roger Ailes, how he used to work for the Nixon White House, and how he and Bruce Hutchinson didn't like the fact that Nixon got run out of town, which I have to admit, he brought that on himself, okay? But I remember Bruce Hutchinson wrote this book. My father had the book too. It was called Masters of the Antenna. Yeah. And it spoke about how Bruce Hutchinson, who wrote the book, felt that if the press, and remember, this guy's a right winger. He felt that if the press wasn't so left wing, I mean, everyone who remembers some of that old footage from one Nixon's press conferences where a very young Dan Rather confronted Nixon and asked him to his face, "Are you a crook?" And Nixon, of course, being Nixon was flustered and said, "No, I'm not a crook." And then of course, Dan Rather said, "You sure?" Just being snarky. But yeah, Hutchinson felt that if the press wasn't so left wing, Nixon could have rode out the controversy. Now, in all likelihood, maybe not. But Hutchinson felt that way. But of course, this video is not so much about the excesses of American news media. No, this is about something that's happened very recently. And that big boy, Jim from the Quartering, well, he has the receipts. Actually, James O'Keefe, he's the has the receipts, but Jim from the Quartering, he clued me in on what's going on. Okay, are you ready? Here we go.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. Absolute massive bombshell out from OMG Media, O'Keefe Media Group, catching an MSNBC producer explaining how they're working directly with the Kamala Harris team to lie to Americans. Now, many of you are probably like, well, no doy. Can we bring back no doy? I feel like not enough people say that in 2024. People are like, well, of course mainstream media is doing it. But there's a whole nother level to it when you see them say it so flippantly when they're just trying to get laid. They are almost like, I don't know, proud of it. They think it's going to increase the likelihood of them filling those sweet walls. And it's just maybe the lowest of the low. Let's get into the story, by the way. So if you're supporting me somewhere else, move it on over there. It's the #1 best spot because I'm taking control of my content again. MSNBC producer explains how the network manipulates its viewers and how they're directly working to elect Kamala Harris. We all knew it was happening, but here you have it straight from MSNBC.
So do you feel like MSNBC is doing enough to help the Harris campaign?
I mean, they're doing all they can.
Meet Basil Hamden, a writer and producer for MSNBC's weekend show, Iman. Basil also reveals that, quote, what her message of the day is their MSNBC's message of the day.
What have they done to help the Harris campaign?
Amplify her message. What her message of
This guy sounds like he likes dudes to me. So why is he trying to hook up with this chick?
the day is their message of the day.
Hamden revealed that MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece and is doing anything to get Kamala elected. Hamden says this news network is indistinguishable from the Democratic Party.
So is MSNBC just like doing whatever it takes to get Kamala elected?
Yes. It hammers home the point that
I mean, literally yes, without hesitation. Literally yes, without hesitation. By the way, if you're watching this video right now, have you registered to vote? Go to vote.gov, figure out how to register to vote. Make sure you vote. Vote early in person so you don't have to deal with lines. And then spend the next 2 weeks finding at least one other American who cares about the truth, who cares about fighting back against the military-industrial complex, who cares about fighting against literal fake news media, and get them to register to vote. Like, he's just saying it right out loud.
not making that this news network is indistinguishable from the party.
Are they just
It's indistinguishable from the party.
the Democratic Party's mouthpiece?
Exactly.
MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece.
Yeah.
What an idiot. I don't know, like, when this started, okay? Like, the honeypot. The honeypot has almost certainly existed for some, period of time that is longer than the last 5 minutes. But, like, how do people keep falling for this? By the way, real time, someone just joined as a member. Thank you. You know what? I'll even give you a shout out. Formula joined. Thank you. So it's a ton of fun in the members Discord too. I'm in there every day. So you talk to me, you get the members only content. Melanie's in there. Sticks will be in there. All that kind of stuff. It almost sounds, link in the description. Join today. It almost sounds like this is made up. Like he's just saying it because it's so crazy. Like it's so crazy that he's just saying this out loud without, like, with his whole chest. He's saying it out loud with his whole chest that, like, yeah, we cheat. Not only that, we don't cover the news. We don't cover the news. We just do what we want. We literally work for Kamala Harris. He's saying that out loud.
Yeah.
Basil calls MSNBC viewers brainwashed and states that MSNBC made their viewers dumber over the years.
Viewers get mad at the guests or the host if the host were to criticize Democrats. They've made their viewers dumber over the years.
Look how he's smiling. Look how he's smiling. He is actually proud of the fact that they have misinformed their viewers. They have made their viewers dumber.
I think brainwashing and dumbing down
It's bad.
aggressive
I get it.
helps Trump.
Oh, he's saying it actually helps Trump. Interesting. I don't think it does.
Right now.
Last week, we saw Vice President Kamala Harris's first mainstream media solo interview of her presidential run with MSNBC's Stephanie Ruhle. Many people were stating how much of a softball interview it was. Here's a clip from that.
I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay.
With that,
By the way, everyone has. There's some weird statistic. It's not weird. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but like some massive percentage of Americans have worked at McDonald's. I forget what it is.
OMG decided to look into MSNBC and their cozy relationship with the vice president. Meet Basil Hamden, a writer and producer for MSNBC's weekend show, Iman. Hamden's background includes working at the Huffington Post as a news director and being the executive producer for Michael Moore. Basil met our OMG American swiper on the dating app Bumble and divulged about his job to our undercover journalist.
Remind me where you work.
Right now, I'm working at MSNBC.
What do you do? What's your title?
Writer, producer.
I mean, look, I don't know who this girl is. She must be smoking hot because this guy, I mean, she's literally like, all that's missing is her putting a microphone in his face. It must be two big, beautiful microphones that he's staring at. Like, she's like, excuse me, where do you work? What's your title? Like, what?
So a live news show on the weekends.
Okay, what is it called?
Amen. Yeah,
I've heard of that.
Basil Hamden, producer at MSNBC, states that MSNBC is helping the Kamala Harris campaign, stating they are, quote, amplifying her message. Basil also reveals that, quote, what her message of the day is their MSNBC's message of the day.
So do you feel like MSNBC is doing enough to help the Harris campaign?
I mean, they're doing all they can.
Literally.
Which is what? What have they done to help the Harris campaign?
How is he answering these questions? Am I crazy? Maybe it's just because I've seen a bunch of James's work and his female and sometimes male staff's work. Yeah, I mean, she could literally ask him what his social security number is right now, and he would tell her, oh, yeah. Oh, okay, this isn't weird at all. Would you like my driver's license ID?
Amplify her message. What her message of the day is their message of the day.
Does anyone really trust the healthcare system? Well,
I mean, are you joking? It must be some incredible cleave. That's all I can say.
So do you feel like
it's just simply incredible?
They're often saying the same exact things. The type of people who work in Democratic politics and in the campaign are a lot of the same type of people that would appear on air on MSNBC. It hammers home the point that I'm making, that this news network is indistinguishable from the party.
Are they just the Democratic Party's mouthpiece?
Exactly.
MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece.
Yes.
How does he not know? How does he not know? He said that with a smile on his face.
Yes.
So is MSNBC just like doing whatever it takes to get Kamala elected?
Yes. Yes.
Even if there are like clear contradictions that would potentially alienate some of the viewers?
Yes, but unfortunately...
That's bad journalism, right?
It is, but unfortunately...
Oh, she even just said it. That's bad journalism.
They've made their viewers dumber over the years. Fortunately, they're not brainwashing people with racist propaganda like Fox.
Oh, it's just a different kind of propaganda. It's just a different kind of propaganda. Don't worry, it's just a different kind.
But particularly post-Trump, from Trump on, they've really narrowed their audience's mind to the point where even when guests go on their show to criticize Democrats, people get mad at the guests.
It begs the question, why isn't MSNBC's motto, the network indistinguishable from the Democratic Party? Per Basil Hamden, MSNBC is nothing more than a network that is solely based on helping the Democratic candidate, Kamala Harris. Just this week, MSNBC panelist Eddie Glaude stated Kamala Harris has to win. And if she doesn't, our young children in America will have the threat of being bombed at school because of Donald Trump.
What?
We got to come out and try to figure out how to turn out in large historic numbers, because we got to keep this troglodyte out of office.
Oh, troglodyte. Yeah, oh, troglodyte. Oh, was that on your word of the day calendar, you weirdo? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you are so stupid that you fall for this stuff, but they are. I guess you willingly say, "Hey, we're gonna do this crazy stuff," because you're a true believer, and you just say crazy things. I don't know.
Comes in, our babies are going to be in.
It's very partisan Democrat. Their problem, and I think they would have a bigger audience. It would be if they were less tied to the Democratic Party itself. They should be progressive. They should tell the truth from a progressive
So they should
perspective,
lie. Yeah.
but they shouldn't be tied to a political party.
So he's saying, oh, they should be partisan hacks, just less tied to the DNC, which is probably funneling money in.
How are they currently tied to the Democratic Party?
They just are way too cozy with Democratic politicians.
How? I can't tell.
If you watch an interview with a Democratic politician,
This girl, either she is one smoking babe, who knows? I mean, like, she's literally grilling him. Like, if I was out talking to some chick, let's say I was single, right? And she's like, oh, what do you do on the quartering? Oh, that's interesting. How long have you been doing it? What's your title there? Hey, do you ever, like, lie to your viewers? And then she, like, push her chest together and lean in. Like, how is this guy, like, it's literally straight up interviewing.
they just finish each other's sentences. The anchor and the politician are just in total agreement about everything.
It's absolute insanity.
All right, you saw that. Now, of course, some of you right now are saying, oh, well, NBC, I mean, those people are a joke. Okay, I'll concede that. But, of course, the funny thing about MSNBC is that they haven't always been left-wing. Indeed, wait for it, are you ready? Way back during the days of George W., which wasn't that long ago when you get right down to it, Tucker Carlson in his nice little bow tie, he used to work for them. And no, Tucker Carlson wasn't a liberal. Not then, definitely not now. So then you say, well, oh, maybe he's just only one there. No. He wasn't the only one there. There was a few others. But the funny thing is, you wonder, oh, so what the hell happened to the damn MSNBC? And the only thing I can think of is the same thing that happened to the New York Times. Because I remember, I can't remember the woman's name now, but she wrote on her Substack page about the reason why she left the New York Times after working there for nearly 20 years. And she spoke about how, particularly during Trump's first term, how a whole bunch of leftist weirdos had basically hijacked the newspaper. And she spoke about how what finally clued her in was the incident involving the George Floyd riots, and how I can't remember the senator's name that wrote the op-ed basically complaining that Trump should send out the National Guard, and how that one op-ed in New York Times caused like nearly half of the newsroom to have a total freak out. And you say, wait, what? Yeah. In fact, I can't remember that woman's name now. I'll probably remember it in like a week from now, but I can't. But yeah, she wrote a couple of Substack posts complaining about what was going on at the time, and she said that she knew that they had some straight up lefties, proto-communists working for the newspaper, but she didn't realize how many until that op-ed was written. And these people basically protested inside the newsroom and sent a list of demands to the editor-in-chief demanding that the newspaper disavow the op-ed, fire the longtime editor of the op-ed page, I think the guy had been there like 30 plus years, and then issue a public apology. And you know what the newspaper did? It gave in to all those demands. All of them. Every last one. And you will say, wait, what? Yeah, they totally gave in. They totally folded. And after that, the woman said, I can't work for this place. This place gone nuts. And she quit. And the New York Times wasn't the only one that went crazy. Indeed, if you were probably paying attention, CNN, same thing. They went crazy too. And of course, in the Washington Post also went nuts. And of course, oh my God, ABC, it went to crazy town. All because of old Trump. Now, of course, some of you right now saying, oh, well, Trump, he drove a lot of people crazy. Yeah. But only people who tend to be left of center. Now, some of you are probably saying, oh, well, what about old Cheney's daughter? Yeah, well, she's different. She's just some neocon who didn't like the fact that Trump didn't start a war with the entire earth. Yeah, her and old brush mustache himself, Bolton. Yeah, he's nowhere doesn't think much of Trump either, only because Trump didn't blow up half of Iran when he had the chance. Now you're surprised that most of those neocons are sitting there in the Democratic column nowadays. So there you go. But yeah, most of the crazies tend to be on the left. And unfortunately, too many of these people work for the modern newspaper industry. But as you saw in that video, it's one thing to be a leftoid and a nut, and secondly, being a shill for a political party. Now, does that mean that the DNC is actually calling up MSNBC and giving them their talking points? Well, unfortunately, the O'Keefe's video didn't show that. Now, of course, as you saw in Big Boy's video, they set up a honeypot and found some clown who works for MSNBC, probably some mid-level producer, probably not one of the big head honchos upstairs in the corner office. But yeah, and the guy was just spilling his guts about everything. And apparently the guy had no shame. Of course, some of you are saying, yeah, but the guy had a big old wine glass, so he was probably half drunk. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll concede that. In fact, even the big boy in his video said that he said he wouldn't be surprised if the honeypot that was talking to the clown wasn't some serious hottie. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, since we can't see her face, well. But yeah, I think the guy was probably half drunk. And therefore, he's basically was spilling the beans. And he's probably not going, he probably didn't remember it the next day because probably he was too hungover. Yeah, in fact, reminds me of a joke that someone said back when George W. was there, when just before the invasion of Iraq kicked off, everyone inside the Bush administration was saying, oh, it was going to be a cakewalk. And then I think it was Trudeau, Wrights Doonesbury, he made a joke where he said that if you ask some of the people in the Bush administration the truth, they'll probably say, oh, we'll probably be in Iraq for 10 to 20 years. And then he wanted to add, but if you get them drunk, they'll probably say probably did there for at least 99 years. I remember that joke. I thought it was funny because it was probably truthful. And therefore, when you think about, the Big Boy's video, it's probably what was going on there. In other words, they basically got the guy drunk, and they started interrogating him, and he was just spilling his guts. But yeah, he didn't sit there and say that. Yeah, they were actually getting people from the DNC leadership on the damn red phone, telling them what their talking points was going to be each day, and he didn't go that far. But the fact that he was basically saying that, oh yeah, we're totally in the tank for the DNC, and particularly Harris, cackles. That most of you probably say, oh, that's not surprising. Yeah. Well, I remember Tim Pool. He said a long time ago that back when he used to work for BuzzFeed and later, Vice News, he said that the funny thing about those organizations was that, yeah, there was a lot of lefties who worked for them alongside himself. And of course, he said at the time he was still a liberal. He didn't consider himself not even middle of the road or even conservative. But anyway, he said that what the leadership would do is they would hire people who they knew were left wing or radical leftists. And then once they hired them, they didn't really have to tell them anything because they knew where these people's minds were. And then they would just basically send them out on a story covering whatever. And then they expect these people to let their political bias, basically color their reports. And there you go. They didn't have to give people any orders at all. They just assumed that because these people were leftists, that they're just going to write something from left of center bias. But doing that and then actually getting orders from the political party itself, that's something on a completely different level. And indeed, as I mentioned earlier about the battle days of party press, that's what was happening back in the past. Now, some of you is probably saying, oh, well, that's probably what the people at Fox News or over there at the New York Post or the Washington Times do. And I'm thinking, not necessarily. If anything, they're probably doing the same thing that the people over at BuzzFeed and Vice was doing. They're probably hiring people who they know their mindset is like, right of center. And they're just simply sending them out on stories, and they expect them to write stories that are with a right-wing bias. Okay. Now, of course, if James O'Keefe were to go out there to Fox News or the New York Post and get one of their people drunk and then ask them, hey, do you guys get any orders from the RNC leadership? It'll be interesting to see what they say. But we don't have no proof that they are getting orders directly from the RNC. I mean, it would be hilarious if they were, but whatever. So what does that mean? It clearly shows that as far as MSNBC is concerned, they are like completely corrupted by partisan politics. I mean, just totally corrupted. And because of that corruption, their viewership has just gone to the toilet. Indeed, Tim has made multiple videos on that subject, showing what viewership for all the old alphabet networks were, say, back during the days of Bill Clinton, and even during George W., and how during Obama and later Trump, the line was just going in this direction, down, down, down. Now, of course, some of you are saying, oh, that's because people were getting information from the internet by that time. True. I hear you. But just because you're going to the internet to get your information doesn't mean the internet is kosher. I mean, remember back in the bad old days of Jack Dorsey's Twitter? Oh, yeah. Real big old bowl of boiling stew of garbage. In fact, I remember Tim once referred to Twitter during the battle days of Jack Dorsey as being basically a fire hole of bullshit that Jack Dorsey was actually sticking in his own mouth. And I was thinking, yeah, that's kind of horrific. But yeah, because back during those days, you had nothing but all kinds of left-wing garbage on there all the time on Twitter. Was it 1.0 as Tim would call it? But guess what? Most of that garbage is gone now. Now, of course, some of these radical leftists say, oh, thanks to Elon, Twitter's gone total right-wing. Not necessarily. It's just that the right wing is not banned anymore. And therefore, they're basically allowed to say whatever they want. Now, of course, the lefties are still on there. Yeah, in fact, you can go on there right now and see some video where a bunch of Harris supporters are sitting there protesting, what was it, that Project 2025, which has nothing to do with Trump or anything. And they're sitting there whining about it. And yet they're not being banned. So there you go. But yeah, that thing, that video from MSNBC, that is shameful. And wait for if you saw in, oh, that's right, Tim Pool, he mentioned it on his IRL show a couple of days ago. And he said that guy who they got drunk and start spilling the beans over there at MSNBC, he shut down his Twitter account. And so it shows that at least the guy has some shame. Now, of course, if he still has a job, that's a very good question. But yeah. So we can only think of what might be going on at these other publications. You know, like the Washington Post, like the damn New York Times, and of course ABC News. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what those people would say if you put a bottle of scotch down their gullet. Yeah. Really interesting to see what they would say about what's really going on behind the curtain. Well, that's all I gotta say about this drunken fool over there at MSNBC spilling the beans about what's really going on. And that's my opinion.